Welcome to the JRPG Canon, a podcast where we play a little bit of a video game to learn a little bit about video games. I'm Sam Allman.
I'm Bernard.
And today we will be discussing the, oh man, I didn't write it down, 1997? Sounds right?
I'm not going to help you. If I help you, you won't learn.
No, it's true. We're playing Moon Remix RPG Adventure for the Nintendo Switch for this version. It originally came out on the PlayStation. And I'm very, very excited for this one. Have you ever played Moon before?
No.
Me neither.
I have not played Moon, but I love Moon because it's a weirdo, obscure game for freaks that barely anyone has played, at least outside Japan, and probably I don't think it's very big in Japan either, but also is like one of the most important, influential games ever.
So here's a hot exclusive about me. I love Onion games a lot, and I love Yoshiro Kimura, who is kind of like the brains of the operation, and I love him a whole lot. But of all of their games, I've only ever played Dandy Dungeon 1. I didn't even play the second half of Dandy Dungeon. But at some point on Twitter back in the day, the Onion Games Twitter posted about their YouTube channel where Yoshiro Kimura just chats about his games. I love game design, obviously. I'm doing a podcast about it, and listening to people talk about their passions is awesome. So I followed the YouTube channel and joined the Secret Onion Seller newsletter where they post dev diaries and stuff. And what I love about Kimura is that he seems to just deeply and truly love video games, but he's not trying to make a AAA game or get famous from games or anything like that. And none of his games even really sell that well. So it was really cool seeing a smaller indie game dev from across the pond talk about games the way that I talk about games. Kimura loves to give interviews, and he's really, really good at them. And I recommend watching his YouTube videos and reading the interviews that he's done with Patrick Klepek from Vice, Reb Valentine from IGN, Corey Arnold from Gamatsu, and his extended interview that's in John Szczepaniak's. I don't know. It's Czech or Polish or something. There's Z's in it. And it's his book is called The Untold History of Japanese Game Developers, and there's like a 45-page interview with Kimura. It's amazing.
Oh, wow.
With these interviews are everything that I use to piece together the history section. But honestly, it was just a great time reading them, and I recommend you just go and read the interviews. They're really good. But let's listen to some music from this game, and then we will talk about the history. So Onion Games is similar to Camelot, where it's been the same like three people for most of the time they've been making games, but they've gone by several different names as they've gone through it. Before they were Onion Games, they were Punchline, and before they were Punchline, they were Love Delic, and before they were that, they were Squaresoft Osaka, working on Romancing Saga 2. But before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. In the early 70s, when Yoshiro Kimura was a child, he liked computers a lot and had figured out how to write basic programs in BASIC on his Panasonic JR200. One day, he read a newspaper article about Douglas Smith, the creator of Lode Runner, and how he had made Lode Runner by himself and was now able to pay off his house and buy 2 cars, all because of the success of the game. Kimura was inspired by this, not because Douglas Smith was rich, but because he was indie. He was like, if this one guy can make a game that's that good, so can I. And so he started making his basic programs into basic games. As he grew up into his 20s, he stayed interested in computers, which was not super duper common back in the day, even for people who were in the game industry. There was so much you could do to make video games that didn't require typing into a computer. He tells a story about one of his colleagues, Kazuyuki Kirishima, who worked with him at Square and was like a big deal and could not even type his name onto a keyboard. He had no idea what to do with it. But Kimura had been writing in BASIC, which is English words, like his whole life. So he was pretty skilled at the computer part of the job. So he got a job at Squaresoft working on Romancing Saga 2. He was just entry level at the time, so he didn't contribute much to the game, but he contributed one of the most important parts of the game. When he first got there, when the characters would spark a new move or whatever, they had a generic little like exclamation point above their head. And Kimura told the designer that this was boring and it wasn't exciting, and that it should be a light bulb, like they're getting a new idea. The designer agreed, and now the sparking light bulb has been in every single Saga game ever since.
Cute.
So Kimura describes his 20-year-old self as thinking that he was a big hotshot full of wonderful ideas, and when he got to Square, he would make the best games in the world, and everyone would be in love with his ideas. But when he actually got there and met the actual hotshots full of ideas, he was very humbled. But he wasn't discouraged. He just saw that he had a lot more to work on, and he was determined to do that work. But after 3 years with Square, he felt he wasn't progressing, and so he was starting to get burnt out and hate game development. So he decided he was never going to make video games ever again and was going to leave to travel the world. He told his boss that he was moving back to West Japan to take care of his family and that he would never work in games ever again. His colleagues, the aforementioned Kazuyuki Kirishima and Taro Kudo, as well as a friend from another department at Square, Kenichi Nishi, all also wanted to leave Square and start their own studio, and they wanted Kimura to come and join them. He said, "Look, I like you, and I like your ideas, and I think that you're going to do great, but I got to go travel the world. If after I go travel the world, I come back and y'all are still doing it, I'll join your studio. But for now, no thank you." But that trip didn't start for a month, so they begged him, like, "Look, just come discuss games with us for a month and see if you like it." So he joined the studio Lovedelic for around a month and discussed the game that would one day become Moon. But when his month was up, he said that he wasn't joking about traveling the world, and he took off on his worldwide adventure. Kimura loves traveling. In his introduction on the Onion Games website says that he has walked all over the world, and he told Patrick Klepek in the interview that that's actually true. He's walked on every continent in like a crapload of countries, and he's basically gone everywhere ever since his post Squaresoft trip. And he's every time he is traveling, he's really in awe of how beautiful and rich the world around him, as well as the people around him are. He loves seeing new cultures and new peoples, and seeing all the way that people are diverse, but also seeing all the ways that people are similar. After a few stops that he doesn't even remember what they were, he eventually ended up in Peru, and he was visiting a town near Machu Picchu. And he saw a huge line of kids just standing in front of a small street vendor. The guy had set up a few Super Nintendos, and he was letting kids play for 10 minutes for a penny. And then when they were done, they had to go back to the back of the line. But the games that they were playing weren't like Mario or Breakout or anything normal for this sort of situation. They were playing Final Fantasy IV. But because each kid only got to play for 10 minutes, all of them were looking over each other's shoulders, being like, "Oh, go over there, go over there." And they were just hyping each other up, getting excited playing this game. And looking at that, he knew that he still wanted to make games. It was the jobbiness of the job at Square that he didn't like, not game development. So he returned from Peru to see how far along Lovedelic had gotten with Moon, and they hadn't. The game's action was currently about opening doors to people's hearts by like actually opening doors. And he doesn't remember what the story was, but he remembers it was a mess, and it was something about a boy and a girl, and got way too complicated for what they had the capabilities to do. So he was flabbergasted that they hadn't made any progress in the like 6 or so months that he was gone. So he got to work helping people get back on track. He would punch up the story here, design some systems there, until eventually he was accidentally the game director. He doesn't like to think of it as directing because he's done directing at other places, and he says that this was more like a garage band. Everyone there was different and good at different things, and were inspiring each other. And by the end of everyone bouncing off of each other, it just ended up that everybody liked Kimura's story the most. So he wrote the whole thing. One of the garage band sort of moments that they had was somebody one day brought in a bunch of modeling clay to the studio, just kind of like to play with, and everyone joined in, like down to the accountant. I don't know if it was actually the accountant, but he says like every single person in there just was playing with this Play-Doh, and they made something like 60 different monsters out of the clay, and they decided that those monsters were going to be the monsters for Moon. The core idea of Moon was poking at the idea that in video games, the hero goes around murdering thousands of critters and breaking and entering and stealing, and he's considered the hero. But what does it mean to be a hero? and when you're playing a game, what's the reality of what's happening in the story and what is just gameplay abstractions. Their Moon mood board also had things like a world to explore at will, riddles without heavy handed hints, characters with individual human traits, and a story without killing. Kimura says that his journey around the world and witnessing all the diversity really brought these themes forefront in his mind, and that's what he was thinking about at the time when he wrote the story. One of the other ideas that came up in these garage band type sessions is that Taro Kudo decided that they shouldn't have a traditional game soundtrack because like the real world doesn't have music. That's video game stuff. But in the real world, you listen on your CD player at the time, and so in the game you find MDs, and they're actual indie artists that they license to put in the game. So you listen on your CD player, and that's the only music in the game, which is very cool.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. That's wild.
After Moon was released, they were looking to get the game localized into English, but the producer that was leading that charge left Love and no one else wanted to do it, so the international edition was dropped. In the interest of brevity, I must want to skip a few over the 20 plus years that they were making games like Tulip and Rule of Rose. But seriously, go read those interviews. It's so fascinating. There's a lot of really cool bits in there. Uh, and the book that I read, it was written at a time when Onion Games was just getting founded. So it's very cool seeing him like, yeah, I want to get back into games, and I think I'm going to do it now, sort of thing. It's a very awesome time capsule of it. In 2016, Kimura was in another stage of burnout with his career, and he attended the Independent Games Summit in Tokyo. And seeing all of the games that people were making just for the love of the game, he was moved to tears. In his exact words, he says, I feel that indie games are a part of the beautiful nature of the earth. This wonder and awe he felt looking at the indie games is the same wonder and awe he feels looking at mountains, seeing auroras, going around nature, traveling the world. He felt that same emotion watching people make indie games. So he knew he wanted to make games again, and this time he wanted to do it indie. So he called up his friends from Love to Lick and Punchline, and he told them this story, and they said, "Nah, you weren't crying because you were moved. You were just crying because someone was cutting onions." And thus, Onion Games was born. Toby Fox, the creator of Undertale, posted publicly after Undertale got super successful that his primary inspiration was Moon, and he wished that everyone would be able to play it one day. After this, Kimura and Fox became friends, and they would often participate in indie developer interviews and stuff like that together. And after one interview, they were getting lunch, and Toby asked Kimura why Moon never came out in English, and Kimura said that oh, it's too hard. There's no way it would ever happen. But after he said that out loud, he says, he thought to himself, wait, why am I giving up? I shouldn't give up. And it was around this time that the fan translation of Moon by Galeon Q was starting to get buzz. I don't know if it ever got finished. I did not look that up. I thought it would, I should have because I'm bringing it up, but I did not look it up if it was ever finished. But people were excited about it, and Kimura was really shocked that people overseas liked Moon as much as they did, and to be this excited about a fan translation when the game never came out and it didn't even sell very well in Japan. One of the only hits I could find in the videogamehistory.org library was like sales numbers from Japan. I think it sold like 30,000 copies, something like that. At least at the time of that sales report. So they didn't do very great, but yet everyone was so excited for this game and wanted to play it. And so, because the West was so excited about it, he decided that if they re-release Moon for the Switch, they wanted to have an English localization. Rewind back a couple of years to the development of Little King's Story, and Kimura was at Tokyo Game Show to promote it. And then Tim Rogers and Brandon Sheffield of Insert Credit interviewed him, but not about Little King's Story, about Tulip. Tulip is one of Kimura's favorite games that he's ever made, and so he was super delighted to talk about Tulip the whole time, and he formed a friendship with Tim and Brandon. So when it came time to find a translator for Dandy Dungeon, he thought of how Tim is a talented writer, and he's a huge fan of Kimura's work, and he really understands like the themes and stuff that Kimura's trying to do, and he's also really, 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 really good at Japanese. And so he reached out to Tim, and Tim said yes to do Dandy Dungeon. So then a few years later, when they got the rights back to Moon from Kadokawa, they were determined to have an English translation, so they reached out to Tim again, and once more he said yes. And so on August 27th, 2020, Moon was finally released into the West, and I bought it on day one and never turned it on. Let's fix that. Let's turn it on and see what this game is about. Okay, yeah, this game rules, and it absolutely deserves its reputation.
Yes.
Yeah, the end. Check us out on on the internet. No, right away the game was it was like a modern video game, like a modern indie game, but it's 30 something years old. It's bonkers how good it is.
Yeah, it came out in 1997, and it feels so fresh and modern, even
Yeah,
though it came out the same year as Final Fantasy VII.
and like the way that the game lovingly tears Dragon Quest a new one at the beginning is so good. Like everything it did, we had both of us just cackling at how good the jokes were. It was very, very good, and like on par with like an Undertale or something, which is also 10 years old, which is ridiculous, but like it feels like a very modern video game.
I mean, it was making jokes about Dragon Quest, but it was definitely also making jokes about other
Mm.
RPGs. For instance, the very funny joke of the increasingly impossible to read
Yes.
introductory text, which started with a text box would come up and you wouldn't have quite enough time to read it, but then eventually there was just really tiny text filling the entire screen and it'd be up for half a second. That
Oh,
was clearly more a Final Fantasy thing.
absolutely.
Even the 2D Final Fantasy games liked to do that.
Yeah. When I was writing my notes, thought about Back to the Future. It's like you're not ready for this yet, but your kids are going to love it. Is the whole vibe of this game.
Yes.
And like one thing that I loved about the jokes is almost none of them are like punchline jokes. None of them are like, "Oh,
No, they're not punchline jokes, they're love to lick jokes.
but like nothing is ham-fisted or anything like that. They'll just overuse the word kill in the speech from the king and then have a incongruence between the overworld sprites and the face sprites or battle sprites. Just things that are really funny if you've played a lot of RPGs before, but it never once like announced it was doing a joke now, which is very rare in video games.
I mean, it was kind of just in a constant state of doing a joke.
Yes.
At least in the introductory segment before
Mm.
when you're being the hero.
I also loved that the theme of the game of what is the game and what is reality, how it came through in the differences of what you saw in the game world to what they were like in Moon World. Like how you're literally just playing the intro again, but this time you're going around and being nice to people, so you get to see everything from the other side. And some of them were played for comedy, like when the hero's chasing the dog all around everywhere, but a lot of them were just like interesting, like the king being inept and just liking to color on a coloring book is just different, and it was very cool seeing the differences there. Like you also, there were a lot of things where like I could navigate the moon world because I remembered what things were shaped like in the game world. So like the area to the south, like I knew that it was going to be relatively U-shaped because that's what shape it was in the other one, sort of thing. It was rewarding your memory of the intro because it's like, oh, this is the same thing, it's just way different.
Yeah, and I also found the core gameplay of the main section of the game to be interesting. How you're just exploring this area on a schedule and trying to find ways of making monsters' souls appear so that you can catch them. I'm trying to think what it reminds me of. It reminds me of something, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it like popped in my head for a second too of something else that I had done that was
We're so good at
similar.
this.
Really, really are. Pokemon Snap.
That is something that is sort of similar.
Yeah, because you have to like, as you're going through each thing, you have different, like the puzzle is figuring out how to make Bulbasaur appear or whatever.
Yes. But it's very interesting. It's interesting that it's a RPG parody game where you're not like doing RPG stuff really, you're doing a different sort of thing.
Hmm. It's almost entirely a puzzle game, like a puzzle adventure game, and very little of it is RPG flavored. But because the whole thing is like RPG flavored, it rules.
Yes.
You get to do RPG things without doing RPG things. Speaking of which, so I looked up in between when we recorded the video and now, I looked up to see when the first game with a daily schedule like this was, because Majora's Mask is what we called it, but Majora's Mask is 3 years later. So I was
Yeah.
looking around to see like, was this actually revolutionary? And it doesn't seem like it was, but they like Harvest Moon had one, and it was just the year before. But when I looked it up, Deadline from Infocom, the creator of Zork, their third game was a detective mystery where the NPCs all had schedules and you had to be in the right place at the right time to get the right evidence, and that came out in 1982. So they'd been there for a while, but this flavor of it, the Harvest Moon, Majora's Mask Moon flavor, absolutely started just the year before with Harvest Moon. So it was very, very new to be doing this, and that's cool and neat.
Yeah. As I mentioned while we were playing, games with schedules like this stress me out.
Yeah.
You had a lot of trouble getting to the king when he wasn't busy feeding
Yeah.
birds.
Yeah, so that goes into one of the not things that I would necessarily change about this game, because like once you get through it it's fine, but like the beginning of the game is too hard for no reason, and it's a little obtuse when it's being hard for no reason. So like, if I hadn't have read the manual, I would have no idea why I got a game over type thing. You just start walking slower, and then you die, and you kind of have no idea what's going on.
To be fair, the time this game came out, you were sort of expected to read the manual.
Yeah, and once, so I kept playing after we stopped recording, and maybe 30 minutes after where we stopped, I had gotten enough animals that I was able to stay up for over 24 hours, and that kind of made all of the hard parts of the game go away. So I think if you would have started with like more than just 12 hours of the day that you could walk around, I think all the rough parts would be smoothed over. But rough parts are good, so you don't have to smooth it over. Yeah, so the schedules are really stressful and you do die a lot, but the game has an autosave, which not a lot of PlayStation games had an autosave, which is cool. But you save at the beginning of each day, so it even though you get game overs a lot, it's a lot closer to like restarting a Super Meat Boy level than it is dying in Final Fantasy, for example.
Yeah, and I know you like to not save your game, so this is
Yeah,
good.
I'm real bad at it. Yeah, with one of the interviews with Kimura, he said that a lot of people thought that the original was too hard, but he wanted to preserve Moon exactly as it was on the PlayStation for the Switch port and not reduce or change the difficulty at all. That's why it's still 4x3 and doesn't have any quality of life updates, because it's a port, not a remake, which is cool because that doesn't happen.
I mean, it has a big quality of life upgrade for me, which is being in English,
Yes.
which I love the writing in it. It's very much Tim Rogers writing.
Yeah,
He's clearly,
having a blast.
yes. Like, the writing in the intro is, of course, quite different because that is supposed to be emulating a certain tone. But after the intro, it's very silly and fun.
Yeah.
And, of course, reminds me a lot of Dandy Dungeon, which he also translated,
Hmm.
which is another work by Kimura, which you mentioned in the intro.
Hmm. Going back to the difficulty thing for a second, I don't think that the difficulty was actually too hard. I think it was too hard for me, Sam Allman, who plays JRPGs, because I was cocky and was going and doing the next video game thing because I thought that I could do it. But the game is very clearly about not doing that and taking it slow and hanging out with people and all of that stuff. So I think it wasn't that the game was hard, it's that I sucked.
So when we started playing, you said it was like a time loop, and then you sort of corrected yourself. I just want to confirm it isn't like a limited 7 days. It's just like a week's
Yeah.
that you go through multiple weeks, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had misunderstood because I hadn't played the game yet. So I had misunderstood. I thought it was because someone said it was a Majora's Mask style thing. I thought it was a 7-day time loop, but no, it is just a 7-day gameplay loop.
Okay. And I mean, it does still definitely share similarities with Majora's Mask, but that is still a big difference.
Yeah. I wish that I would have gotten far enough to get some MDs in our playthrough because they're awesome. I now have since in my personal playthrough that I kept going, I have gotten to the MDs and that system is cool. And while we were playing, the game was almost completely silent unless we were next to somebody who was playing music. So on the one hand, I won't have to worry about the music being too loud this episode, but on the other hand, it would have been nicer to have some music towards the beginning. Even if you only get like one or two available in at the general store. I forget the lady's name. I was trying to say it. Can't remember. It was the smoker lady.
Curio?
Yeah, Curio. If Curio would have had like one or two, and then you get to the record store later, that would have been awesome. But I can confirm the music in this game rules because I've now gotten to it.
I mean, we did get to enjoy a lovely version of Claire de Lune
That's true.
at Granby's house.
And in short, this game deserves to be in the JRPG canon because, of course, it does. Like Bernard said in the intro, this game is a cult classic game for weirdo freaks that no one has played and is simultaneously one of the most influential games in history. In the same way that we wouldn't have Pokemon without Dragon Quest, we wouldn't have Undertale without Moon, and we wouldn't have almost every other indie game without Undertale.
I mean, there were lots of indie games before Undertale.
It's true.
But Undertale was also very influential.
This game is a thinking man's contemplation of the nature of video games as escapism, and you didn't get a lot of that kind of video game in 1997. Video games were still about saving the princess, and this game was like, oh, what's it mean to be human? And it's very, very, very cool.
By the way, since we're talking about Undertale a lot, I want to call out a article that Game Informer published today, which I think has an unfair headline. Toby Fox defends limited language options in Undertale and Deltarune. Quote, "I want it to match my vision."
Wow.
Which sounds a little shitty. The actual quote is more like, look, I would love to have more language options. We have tried to find more ways to do more localizations, but, you know, I want to work very closely with the translators and make sure it works very well. So this is a difficult thing. And I mean, if you've played Undertale,
Yeah.
it seems like it would be, I'm not a translator, but it seems like it would be a very hard game to translate.
Yeah.
And Toby Fox knows Japanese, so that helped him be able to do the Japanese localization. I think if you want to be mad at Toby Fox for what he said, sure, but go and read the full quote and not just what's in the headline before you get angry. If you want to get angry after reading the full quote, go ahead.
Yeah, in short, Moon rules and you should play it. And when you're done playing it, you should get Stray Children, their 30 years later follow-up that is also a follow-up to Undertale.
Yeah, and also Dandy Dungeon, which was originally a mobile game, but now has an offline pay once version on Steam and Switch and stuff. And it's so good.
It's very, very good.
And I really want to play Moon and then play Stray Children.
But that brings us to the end of today's episode. If you like what you heard today and you're not already subscribed to RPG Book Club, you can check us out wherever you get your podcasts. After subscribing, you can head on over to www.rpgbook.club, where any and all donations will help us offset the cost of running the show. If you donate $1 or more a month, you'll get access to our bonus feed, which has after shows for each episode of the podcast, as well as bonus seasons of the show covering the Tales of series and the Star Ocean series. If you donate $5 or more a month, you will also get your name shouted out at the end of every episode, a little like this. Shoutouts to Dragonslayer19, Freddie Rodriguez, and JFro Prime. And then finally, at $20 or more a month, you can make me say a one-sentence shout-out to whatever you like, such as El Tantavi, who wants you to check out Aftermath.site, a worker-owned, reader-supported news site covering video games, the internet, and the cultures that surround them. As well as Kildranis, who says to check out Podcasters Assemble. It's a documentary-style, crowdsourced movie hype and rewatch podcast. Every season, podcasters from around the world are assembled to review, reminisce, and riff on a popular franchise. And then shout-outs to Vimk, who says, "You do know the cohort, right?" And then shoutouts to It's Claire Time, who says, "For you TTRPG nerds, check out Fabula Ultima. I'm not affiliated with the game, I just think it's neat. For the JRPG Canon, I've been Sam.
I'm Bernard.
Go play some games."